Hello everyone, I'm Simon Ford of Ford's Gin. Martinis, gin and tonics, Negronis, great classic cocktails is what I'm about. But I also love to hear of great recipes from great bartenders from around the world, which is why we've partnered with Beyond the Drink for this season. Cheers.
Well, you just heard from the man himself, Simon Ford, and we are glad this season of Beyond the Drink is once again brought to you by our friends at Ford's Gin. I'm Cappy, and in this series, we're going behind the bar. It's time to explore the journeys of the world's best bartenders, uncovering their passion, the latest gin trends, and of course, the social impact they make in their community. Beyond the Drink airs every other week right here on Beyond the Plate. If you're new to the pod, welcome. If you've listened before, we're glad you're back. Let's go Beyond the Drink. Yamas. Today's guests, plural, are the co-founders, hospitality visionaries, and NYC natives behind the group Call Mom. They've been shaping the nightlife and culinary scenes since 2011. From their award-winning gaming parlor, The Spare Room, in the historic Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, to revitalizing LA's iconic Genghis Cohen, these two friends and seasoned veterans have a knack for blending timeless classics with innovative concepts. You can find more on them in the episode notes and follow Marc on Instagram at Mr. Rose and Med at Med Alert. Please enjoy this episode as we go beyond the drink with Marc Rose Med Abrous. Gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Cappy.
Yeah, we start off every episode with an audio test, and let's lean in a little bit to the bar nightlife expertise and go with 3 of something for each of you. So, Marc, let's start with you. Can you name 3 gin cocktails everyone must try?
Yeah, I think a classic martini is a no-brainer. I think a gin and tonic, because that doesn't just play tonight. You can drink that in the afternoon or the morning if you wish. And then I got to shout out the Singapore Sling. I think that not enough people drink that, and it's vacation in a glass, and it brings you to another place.
And now, Med, 3 gin cocktails everyone must try.
One of my favorite kind of classics is the Martinez, really the predecessor to the martini. Delicious, sweet vermouth, little bar spoon of maraschino. One of my favorite cocktails. I think that you have to give the Negroni its due as it morphs and spins its wheels into so many different categories. And I think, again, the gin and tonic is also something that is getting much more sophisticated than just gin and tonic. People are really going in and having fun with it. So I would have to go with those 3.
Sweet. You guys sound good. Let's do it. Let's kick it off by just telling everyone what you both do.
So we own and operate several businesses around the country now. We started at the Spare Room in Hollywood at the Roosevelt Hotel. That was 2010, 2011. We then kind of grew our roots in LA, opened Winsome Restaurant, and then Genghis Cohen. Then we partnered with Graduate Hotels and operate all the food and beverage for the hotel in Seattle, Nashville, and in New York. Most recently, we opened an Italian restaurant in Beverly Hills called La Dolce Vita that we're really excited about.
Well, I just want to add, we reopened La Dolce Vita. It's a classic red sauce restaurant, originally opened in 1966. And we had the luck and privilege of being able to get the keys and just make sure we don't screw up all that history as we bring it into its sort of next form of existence, which is still a red sauce Italian-American restaurant, right? Just built a little more, I think, for modern day palates.
That's interesting. I mean, Genghis Cohen existed. You took it over. Dolce Vita existed, took it over. It's like a different subset of creativity, I suppose.
We've been asked that question before, right? About like, oh, is this like your thing? Finding these places and whether it's reviving them or keeping them going. And I was always, maybe at first I heard it, I was a little defensive about it. Like, no, that's not what we do. And we open new places too. But now I'm in a place where I'm actually embracing it so much because I think that Med and I are sort of design, architectural, history nerds, if you will. And I think a lot of that is what drives everything today, right? Anyone that opens something today most likely was inspired by something that came before. So for us, rather than taking that and putting, our quote unquote spin on it, I think we're able to take these places that have had so much history and find opportunities to, of course, put our voice into it, but bring whatever that voice is to a whole new generation of people that maybe have not discovered it yet. And that comes with a lot of responsibility. It's sort of a responsibility in all those people that put effort and hours and time to it before, whether it was a family or business partners, we take that pretty seriously. You know, that's a thing for us to not just think about what we want, but what everyone else wanted as well.
Yeah, and I think that the exercise is interesting because there's a place that's existing that has memories developed years over years. But I think the way the kind of stars align is that kind of nostalgia really points its finger back to Marc and I's personal experience. So it's not like any place that has history or memories is something that we would want to take on and kind of put our fingerprint on. It has to relate back to our personal experience or something that strikes a chord for us that means something. It's all about kind of doing things that are important or seemingly important to us. And that's when we can really sink our teeth into whether it be the architectural history of a place or a social history of a time and place, and kind of use all of these building blocks to recreate an experience that could be meaningful today.
What's the secret to the success?
What's the sauce? What's the secret sauce?
I think it's really, Med sort of just touched on that. I think it's about doing things that make you happy. I believe that every place we open is a place that we would want to be at every day. I mean, inevitably we are there every day, but a place that we would want to go visit every day, whether it's with our families, whether it's with our friends, whether it's by ourselves. If you build a place that you want to be at every day, that's going to drive you every day. That's going to inspire you to continue that path towards making yourself happy. And I think if you make yourself happy, you got to love what you do. And I think that at this point, we've been doing this for a long time. We both still genuinely love what we do. There's plenty of nights and pillow talk where I'll poke my wife and I'm like, I'm done, but I'm not going to be done because I just love it too damn much.
You guys seem to work pretty great together. Is there something like one of you leans on the other one for more, or like one of you focuses on one thing more than the other?
I think it's hard to be founders by committee, and thank God we don't have a whole lot of other people that need to chime in, although we have tons of partners, right? Certainly in hotel projects where we have to really be very diplomatic. We have to learn how to work with a number of different departments and levels of partners in the business. But I think that we've developed over the years a lot of trust. Listen, we grew up together. We know how to fight. We know how to get to the finish line. We know if there is a decision that really means more to one another, we can kind of give and take. A lot of times it's part of our process to get to the best possible solution. Sometimes things that are toiled over probably shouldn't take as much time as they do. But after we take the time, we more than not find the best path that'll be best for the business or best for whatever creative endeavor we're going over.
Can you give an example of something that like you toil over for a while?
Oh, everything. I mean, you could ask anyone that has worked with us or for us over the years. We don't pick straws as fast as they should be picked. We toil over every decision. At the end of the day, you're talking to two people that are not chefs, are not bartenders by trade, but we're hospitality professionals, right? And whatever that means to someone, it means a lot to us. We take that role pretty seriously. So in that role, it's our job to tell stories. And the only way we can tell those stories are thinking about every single detail, right? So of course, how good is the food and what is the food that's being served? How great is that cocktail that's in your glass and what care did you take to make that cocktail? Well, that doesn't stop for the ingredients, right? It's the glassware, it's the napkin or coaster which that goes in, it's the straw that goes in there with how you're drinking it. That's the experience that someone takes away from it. So yeah, I mean, we toil over every single item and thing in our restaurants. We've sat in tables that were already fully designed that were going to be outside on a patio that had tile on them, knowing that when it's warm out, that glass of iced tea is going to sweat so much, it's going to slip too much on that tile, and that's going to really bother a guest. So we'll have to redesign that table then. And that is the stuff that we toil over each and every day.
Yeah, I think it starts with the experience, and that's really all encompassing. Certainly we both went to art school. We didn't go to business school. So we kind of tackle each project like an art project. They're these kind of singular bodies of work. But from the hospitality side, we always try to inject what is the customer experience, what is the staff experience, and how do these things morph to create something special. From the second you walk in the door, lighting is something that we'll just like obsess over. We sit before anybody ever comes in to pay for a meal. We sit in every single seat in the restaurant, no matter how many seats, to really understand what the experience is. What's the perspective? What are you looking at? Is this a shitty seat? We don't want any shitty seats. Like if your back's to the corner or whatever it is, like how would you approach serving somebody in a particular spot in the restaurant? What are the runs from the kitchen? It goes on, but we'll sit and like toil over these things that may seem minute to some, but when they're all considered, it comes out in the final product.
It's almost like a make or break experience for a guest or many guests, to your point. Did you guys go to art school together?
No.
When did you meet?
So we met as teenagers. I'm a few years older than Matt, although I look younger.
A lot older.
But
Very old.
So we've come up together. And, he mentioned earlier, I think that when everyone always says, how do you guys get along? I'm like, well, we know how to fight. There was actually a funny thing that happened a few years ago. We were at a house party in the Hollywood Hills. I wouldn't say it was an intimate party. There was a lot of people there, probably close to a couple hundred people. And at one point, I guess Matt and I were in the kitchen alone talking to each other. And another person we know came in and she screamed us. She goes, what the hell could you two possibly have to say to each other at this point? But that's just it, right? We don't run out of those things. There's never a dull moment. That's for sure. And I think when you know each other for so long, you have a lot of the same tastes, but you definitely had different ways of going about it. We're different people. We're not the same person whatsoever. And it's easy to say, well, opposites attract that way and help each other that way. But I think it's more that we, whether it's from a pure sense of vanity or what, we really want to be great at what we do. And we know that takes a lot of work. Whichever way we choose to do that work, I think we're both willing to do so.
With so many successes in your journey, I'm certain there were bumps in the road. How do you guys work on overcoming challenges or setbacks?
Part of deciding to be in this business and having this be your sword in life is knowing that there will be challenges every day, multiple challenges. You're probably familiar with the concept of entropy, right? Everything goes out of order. Everything goes out of order all the time, and it just takes energy to put it back into order. When you decide to do this as a business, as your kind of passion in life, you have to start by saying, I know everything is going to go out of order. And from there, when shit goes out of order, you try to find the best solution at the time. And sometimes there's big problems and sometimes there's small problems and there's pipes that burst and there's all types of kind of things that you have to approach with a mindset that it's solvable. And if you put in the work to solve it, then the ball will keep on rolling.
When you all are hiring, what are you looking for?
Well, one funny thing that I always say in an interview is, especially in a management or leadership position, I'm looking for longevity. And I know that I can never offer people like a lifetime contract, right? But you need to go into something thinking, I can work with this person for the next 25, 30 years. And I want to find people like that. And that starts at this point, to be totally honest, I might not be hiring all the line staff in every single place, but I am showing up to people's second interviews more than even people would expect to, because I'm looking for people who are going to be dedicated, not just want to work at what's going to be the newest place in town, or, hey, this is going to be something for me to do for a little bit. I'm going to use it as a platform to jump. We want to be a platform. We want to support everyone in their own growth. But longevity is something that I'm really interested in, a person that can grow with us and look back at us and say, hey, I'm ready to do my own thing. Would you do it with me? Would you want to be my partner and allow this to be my thing? Like, those are the types of people that I'm looking for in general. And that starts from the bottom all the way up to the top.
Yeah, I think that we always try to hire good humans, right? Whatever that means. I think that personality certainly is very important. You could kind of get a sense of people and how they work with teams through their varied experience. I think we're definitely a company that values experience that isn't necessarily just in hospitality. I think that we embrace varied experience, people that have excelled even in different careers or have a different experience. But I think certainly for customer-facing staff, we appreciate people that are interesting, that can connect with people, because at the end of the day, our hospitality experiences are these little tiny moments that can affect people's moods or make or break their experience. And people that have, varied experience and connect with people well are usually the best candidates.
Longevity is really, it's commitment, right? And I feel like anyone that works for us, we are both going to commit everything into that person, whether it's teaching them, whether it's mentoring them, whether it's supporting them both in and out of the bar and restaurant. And I think we want that same commitment back. And I think that we find in our industry, especially the last 7 to 8 years, there's not a lot of commitment. I mean, there is a lot of jumping and there's so much new and it's always about new. And I understand that's exciting. Who doesn't love new? But I think if we commit to each other, and it does go both ways, I think a lot of good comes from that.
When it comes to, you guys are so immersed in the cocktail space, is there anything exciting you're seeing these days in the world of gin or cocktails in general?
I think with gin, just hearing people order gin drinks is exciting. But you think about when you're young and a kid, and it's always like, I got into my grandfather's bar closet. Most likely didn't go so well. Or in the mid 90s, maybe you were sipping on some gin and juice, right? Because you thought you were something that you weren't. And, you also didn't have a great experience. So I think just hearing people order gin and be willing to order gin, martinis have just had such a great resurgence. And you hear and see people ordering martinis all the time, whether it's gin or vodka, either way, they are ordering martinis. And I feel like the same thing has happened with Negronis the past year and a half, 2 years, and seeing so many more people be willing to do that I think that alone is exciting. I think people are putting away their sort of ideas of what gin might be and being open to it. We talked earlier about gin and tonics and where they're changing. I think people infusing gins with passion fruit and making things like that. And just right away, if you say passion fruit gin and tonic for the more modest imbiber in the world, they're going to be willing to try that, right? Because passion fruit might be the word that gets them.
Yeah, I think that, the future is bright for gin because it's generationally, I think that when we were growing up, Mark was alluding to this, is like gin wasn't kind of mainstream enough. It belonged to the previous generation. And I think really the advent of cocktail bars and cocktail culture in its latest iteration has really reintroduced it in a way that is palatable for kind of the younger generation. So they don't have the same stigmas as we once did. So I think that having Negronis, having martinis, kind of taking these cocktails specifically and not necessarily associating them with a spirit that may or may not have been giving you a headache, or you didn't like the taste of it, or, that's my grandma's drink, or whatever it is. I think it's generationally very, very positive for the category and opening it up to so many different people in a good way.
I think also beyond gin, the drinks we're talking about are relatively simple, straightforward drinks, 3-4 ingredient cocktails. And I think that's what I see in general, right? Getting away from needing a 7-8 ingredient cocktail to make something delicious. It's just not true. Even on our latest project, it's a red sauce Italian restaurant. We're not reinventing the wheel. It's spaghetti and meatballs. Just make that wheel run as perfectly as you can and do your version of what is people have eaten for hundreds of years, perhaps. So I'm seeing that as well with cocktails. I think simple cocktails made really, really well, and you can't beat it.
And highlighting the spirit, right? Which is a very kind of culinary thing to do. If you're creating a dish, you want to highlight the product that you use. And I think gin offers so many beautiful undertones of flavors that I think bartenders and us as operators and owners are really embracing. Let the product be what it is and inspire the team to keep creating.
I love hearing you guys talk about the new projects and imparting your points of view on the customer experience with these projects you have, because you guys are the right people for them. You know what I mean? Like, to take a historic spot, your points of view and the attention to detail that you both give and how much it means to you and how much it matters to you, it's so great. I mean, I know there's so many details and variables, but sometimes people don't give a shit about what straw they put in a drink.
And that's a bummer. And I say all the time, like at Med 2, we make mistakes every day, but we like what we do. We love what we do, what I said earlier, and we do what drives us. And do I want to be at a red sauce Italian restaurant every day of the week? Hell yes, I do. Do I want to be at a red leather booth, big fish tank in the front, Chinese American restaurant every night of the week? Hell yeah, I do. These are the things that make me want to get out of bed. And, he also referred to it earlier. When I was a kid, those were the things that made me want to get into the business, right? I remember going to eat Chinese food on weekends with my family. You had to dress up, right? It was like you were going out to a nice meal and you were going to go to another place that's going to bring you into another world. That's another special thing about these places. Like you got to walk in the door and be transported. And sometimes you do that through decor and sometimes you do that through the menu. And if you can do that on all forces, every single angle, like I'm very lucky in what I get to do every day. And I know that.
Where were you going as a little kid dressed up going to a Chinese restaurant?
That's a great question. A lot of people, especially in New York, know this restaurant, but Wohop is one of the great...
Yes, downstairs.
It's one of the great Chinatown restaurants now. Probably people more like yourself and me and Med, we know it from late nights at Wohop, but I used to go there on Sunday nights with my family. And then I would walk around the corner and there's the ice cream factory, the Chinatown ice cream factory, and that's where I'd get my ice cream. And this was a Sunday, I don't want to say night, it was probably like late afternoon, early evening, but that's what we did. There's a couple other places that have since closed, but that is a neighborhood. And I remember Wohop as a kid. And when I went in there as a young adult, probably had a lot of beverages prior to being there, I was like, whoa, this is the spot. I was with my dad. And you have those memories and that nostalgia. And that's why I feel so lucky in what I get to do now.
All these things are connected in a very strange way. Also Chinese restaurants, the drink side of it was always something that was captivating. But the kind of intersection of like this delicious kind of Americanized cuisine, Chinese cuisine in New York, it's kind of marriage with these like exotic cocktails with crazy garnishes and Mai Tais and all these drinks that kind of maybe shouldn't go together, but do gloriously. And that kind of presentation was something that was so exciting for that particular project that just stood out. They're like imprints in your mind that kind of mean something. So in recreating these things, there's just like there's a Rolodex of kind of images and tastes and flavors that you want to kind of bring back in your own way.
Guys, when it comes to giving back and social impact, our Beyond the Plate and Beyond the Drink listeners know we celebrate that with all of our guests. And it's no different from a hospitality operator to a bartender to a chef, whomever. The industry is extremely generous and love learning about ways you all do it. But I'd love to give a moment for you all to shed some light on a cause, an organization, something you all have done to give back to the community. It could be a story of how you've seen it.
Well, the first thing is we have business in a lot of different markets across the country. So I think it's really important that we always focus on those specific markets in their own way, right? Because the customer base is very different. The way they eat and drink is very different. And I think the way they give back is also, I wouldn't say different, but it's to different causes. What's important locally. And even though we might not technically be locally, it's important for our places to do that. So I would say like when Seattle, our bar is called the Mountaineering Club. So we support an organization called the Mountaineers. They're basically our namesake. And what they do is they make sure that education and people's use of the lands, both mountains and the water, is definitely preserved in the Northwest. So we work with them a lot. In Nashville, we work with the Giving Kitchen, which is a great hospitality organization that started down in the South in Atlanta. And they help hospitality workers in times of crisis, whether that's a weather crisis that you have, whether that's a personal crisis, people's health issues, people lose jobs. So that's really important. One in Los Angeles that we're supporting right now goes, Med and I are both dads. So we reflect now a lot on our children. There's an organization called Mind Up, which promotes mindfulness. It starts in kindergarten in schools. My daughter just started first grade and they're actually practicing mindfulness. And it starts with some breathing exercises in the morning that just helps you slow down and get rid of stress and anxiety. And I think that really sharpens their senses and gives them focus. In fact, they have a big gala coming up and we're lucky enough, we're doing a La Dolce Vita martini only bar there. So hopefully that'll get people happy enough to not have any wallet restraint as they go on, because I think it's a really important program. And it affects us directly being fathers of young children.
In New York, a lot of our program there is kind of based on sustainability and even from the building. And we work a lot with the Billion Oyster Project on Earth Day that are replanting the oyster beds in the East River, which used to be a bountiful oyster bed. And we also work with the local kind of Roosevelt Island community gardens that we toured, and we raised money for them to kind of make their green space great. So that's kind of super hyper local. But I think in general, we try to do a lot for the cocktail community. And I think a lot of our initiatives are to keep the community connected in some way. So whether we like it or not, we're usually at Tales of the Cocktail every year for the last 12. I mean, there's COVID times in there, but 12 or 13 years. And we produce a fairly large event that's kind of become the kickoff, the opening kickoff to Tales of the Cocktail. And we do it under the Spare Room banner. It's called the Ode to the Bowl. And really its purpose is to bring people together and have people interact in something that isn't necessarily a cocktail competition or a cocktail. We showcase cocktails and work with great brands, but it's really to allow, especially 12 years later, some of the younger folks that are entering this community, showing them that there is a community and there are great people that have been doing this for a long time. And there is a meaningful kind of career to be had and a lot of different paths that they can take and some mentorship to a certain extent. When you put all the right people in a room, it creates this sense. And I think when COVID happened, a lot of that dissipated. So some of the first kind of events we've done recently have been to kind of reinvigorate that sense of community and give people a reason to get together.
Love it, guys. What's next?
Great segue from what Med was just talking about. I mean, what I'm really excited about is being home a little more often. We still travel a lot to the other markets from where we are, but I think having a newer restaurant in La Dolce Vita, which just kept me here a lot the last year, and obviously having kids that you want to be around for. So I think what's really next is, this fall, we're going to turn 14 at the Spare Room this year, which is awesome. And I'm so stoked that this bar is still doing its thing after all that time. So what's immediate next is a new cocktail menu being dropped in early September, mid-September at the Spare Room. And we're going to dig our teeth into that. And we still feel like that bar is a baby in a sense, right? Because it's a 14-year-old bar, but it's in a 100-year-old hotel. So the building and the walls with which this room sits, we got a lot of catching up to do. So I feel like more evolution is really important for longevity, for sustainability, for all of that we all want in our businesses. Any business owner can tell you that. So yeah, what's immediately next is a new menu at the Spare Room, and I'm so excited for everyone to try those drinks.
It's going to be great.
Awesome, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time and looking forward to my next trip out to LA for sure.
Yeah, man, we can't wait to have you.
Thanks, guys. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Appreciate your time. Thanks for all you do and keep kicking ass with those spots.
Thanks, Cappy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Cappy.
This episode was produced by myself, along with Ian Cohen, Joel Yetton, and Sean Petrosian. Our digital media producer is Sarah McClellan Mee. Our music has been composed by Goldford. Find him at iGoldford. As always, special shout out to my wife, Katie. If you have not started following me yet, you should. Find me across all social media at On Cappy's Plate, or go to BeyondThePlatePodcast.com and keep up to date with Beyond the Plate. Beyond the Plate is also on social at BT Plate Podcast. If you have a moment, we'd be grateful of your support by rating, reviewing, and even hitting that subscribe button to the podcast. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Drink, a production of Beyond the Plate. I'm Cappy.